The mockery begins, Commander. Vex stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship Stellar Dominion, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the blue marble floating in the void before them. His fleet of 300 warships hung in space like predators surrounding wounded prey. The humans called their world Earth, a primitive name for what would soon become another jewel in the Zephyrian Empire's crown. "Status report," Vex commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 17 worlds in the past decade. His Lieutenant Crowell approached with a datapad, his expression puzzled. "Sir, our scans are complete. The humans possess approximately 40 orbital defense platforms, scattered missile installations, and what appears to be a hastily assembled fleet of outdated vessels." Crowell paused, his brow furrowing. "Their technology appears to be centuries behind ours. Their strongest shields couldn't withstand our basic plasma cannons." Vex's mandibles clicked in amusement. Centuries behind. How disappointing. I was hoping for at least a moderate challenge. He turned to face the tactical display, where Earth's defenses were highlighted in pathetic detail. What about their ground forces? Primitive kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and some electromagnetic pulse devices. Nothing that our shields can't handle. Crowell hesitated. "Sir, there is one anomaly. Our deep scans are detecting unusual energy signatures from their southern continent, but the readings are inconsistent. Probably their main power grid," Vex dismissed with a wave. "These primitive species always cluster their infrastructure. We'll target it after we break their orbital defenses." He smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Open a communication channel. Let's offer them the chance to surrender with dignity." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a middle-aged human male in a simple black suit. His hair was graying at the temples, and his eyes held a weariness that spoke of too many sleepless nights. President Chen of the United Earth Government looked directly into the camera with calm resignation. "Commander Vex," Chen began, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "I am President Chen. I speak for all of humanity when I say we have received your terms." "Excellent," Vex replied, settling into his command chair. "Then you accept unconditional surrender. Your people will be relocated to labor colonies, and your world will be strip-mined for resources. It's quite generous, considering your position." Chun's expression didn't change. "I'm afraid we must decline your offer, Commander." The bridge fell silent. Vex's officers exchanged glances of disbelief. Lieutenant Crowell stepped forward. "Sir, perhaps they don't understand their situation. We could demonstrate our firepower on one of their moons." But Vex was already laughing, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Decline? Did this primitive just decline our mercy?" He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with predatory delight. "Human, do you comprehend what you're facing? 300 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, weapons that can crack continents, shields that have never been breached." Chen nodded slowly. "I understand perfectly, Commander, which is why I need to give you one final warning." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "You should leave our solar system immediately." The laughter from the bridge crew was deafening. Vex had to steady himself against his chair, wiping tears from his eyes. "A warning from you." He gestured broadly at the tactical display. "Your entire planetary defense couldn't stop a single one of our scouts." "Those aren't our defenses," Chen said quietly. The laughter died abruptly. Vex's smile faded. "What did you say?" "The orbital platforms, the missile installations, The patrol ships. Those aren't Earth's defenses. They're warning signs. Chen's voice took on an urgent tone. Commander, my species has been the guardian of something very old and very powerful for the past 12,000 years. Something that should remain undisturbed. Vex stood slowly, his patience evaporating. What kind of weapon are you referring to? Some buried nuclear arsenal, a hidden fleet. Not a weapon, Chen replied. A guardian, and it's been sleeping under Antarctica since before human civilization began. He leaned forward, his composure finally cracking to reveal genuine fear. Commander, please, for both our sakes, withdraw your fleet. Vex had heard enough. He cut the transmission with a sharp gesture. These humans think they can frighten us with fairy tales. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin the bombardment. Target their orbital platforms first, then their major population centers. Make it swift. The first wave of plasma fire erupted from the Zephyrian fleet, like 1,000 falling stars. Earth's orbital platforms disappeared in brilliant flashes of light, their debris scattering across the void. The hastily assembled human fleet tried to mount a defense, but their primitive weapons barely scratched the Zephyrian shields. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving distress signals from all across the planet. Emergency broadcasts in hundreds of languages. Let them sing their death songs, Vex replied coldly. Target the next wave on their major cities. I want this over within the hour. But Lieutenant Kral was studying his sensor array with growing concern. Sir, I'm reading massive seismic activity on the southern continent. The energy readings are off the charts. Probably their power. Grid overloading from our attacks, Vex said dismissively. Continue the bombardment. The second wave of plasma fire rained down on Earth's surface, turning sprawling cities into infernos. But instead of the expected collapse of human resistance, something else was happening. The seismic readings from Antarctica were intensifying, and now they were accompanied by something impossible. The ice sheets were moving. Dr. Sarah Martinez burst into the emergency bunker beneath Geneva, her face pale with terror. She had been monitoring the Antarctic research stations when the attacks began, and what she was seeing defied every scientific principle she knew. President Chen, she called out, pushing through the crowd of officials and military personnel. Sir, you need to see this immediately. Chen turned from the tactical displays showing the destruction of Earth's cities. Dr. Martinez, what is it? She thrust a tablet into his hands, the screen showing satellite imagery of Antarctica. The ice is moving, sir. Not melting, moving, rising. There's something underneath, something enormous. Chen studied the images, his face grave. How long do we have? Based on the seismic progression, maybe minutes. Sir, what is that thing down there? The energy readings are unlike anything we've ever recorded. Chen handed back the tablet and walked to the communication console. Open a channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Override all jamming. On the bridge of the Stellar Dominion, Commander Vex was watching the destruction of human civilization with satisfaction when his communications officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. I thought we destroyed their communication arrays. We did, sir. This signal is coming from somewhere else. It's incredibly powerful. Vex waved his hand irritably. Put it through. Let's hear their final pleas. Chun's face appeared on the view screen again, but this time he was in what looked like an underground facility. Behind him, technicians worked frantically at control panels. Commander Vex, this is your absolute final warning. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw from our system. Still making demands, Vex sneered. Your world is burning, human. Your people are dying. What possible threat could you pose now? It's not what we can do, Chen replied. It's what we've awakened. On cue, every sensor on every Zephyrian ship began screaming warnings. Lieutenant Kral stared at his displays in disbelief. Sir, the southern continent. Something is happening. The main view screen switched to a tactical view of Earth, and every being on the bridge fell silent. Where Antarctica had been, something was rising. The ice sheet, kilometers thick and covering an area larger than most continents, was lifting into the air as if it weighed nothing at all. That's impossible, whispered the navigation officer. The mass displacement alone, ... But, impossible or not, it was happening. The ice fell away in massive chunks, revealing something underneath that defied description. It was organic, but also crystalline. It pulsed with energy that registered on every spectrum their sensors could detect. And it was vast scissily, the size of a small moon. Commander Vex gripped his chair as every instinct he possessed screamed at him to flee. What is that thing? On the communication channel, President Chen's voice was barely audible above the sound of alarms. Its name is Kronos. It's been Earth's guardian for 12 millennia. We've been its caretakers, ensuring it could sleep peacefully while humanity developed. His image flickered as power fluctuated through the bunker. Commander, you've made a terrible mistake. The thing beneath Antarctica fully emerged from its icy prison, and space itself seemed to bend around it. Stars disappeared and reappeared as reality warped in its presence. What they had initially taken for a creature was revealed to be something far more terrifying, a living embodiment of cosmic force. And then, impossibly, it opened its eyes. They were the size of continents, swirling with the light of dying galaxies. Every AI system on every Zephyrian ship immediately shut down rather than process what they were seeing. Warriors who had conquered worlds felt their sanity slipping as they gazed upon something that predated their civilization by eons. Lieutenant Kral's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, we need to leave, now. But Commander Vex couldn't move, couldn't speak. He was transfixed by the sight of Kronos as it turned those impossible eyes toward their fleet. In that gaze was the weight of geological ages, the patience of stone, and now finally awakened a terrible cosmic anger. The awakening Kronos moved with the deliberate slowness of continental drift. But when it moved, reality moved with it. Space folded and twisted around the ancient guardian as it rose from its Antarctic resting place, ice and rock falling away like dust from its impossible form. The creature no entity was beyond the comprehension of any known science. Commander, Vex finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a croak. All ships, full retreat. Get us out of this system. But Lieutenant Kral was already checking the navigation systems, his face pale with terror. Sir, the engines won't respond. Something is interfering with our propulsion systems. Override them manually. I'm trying, sir, but it's as if space itself won't let us move. On the communication channel, President Chen's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. Commander, Kronos doesn't appreciate being awakened by violence. For 12,000 years, humanity has served as its guardians, ensuring its rest while our species developed under its protection. Vex tore his gaze away from the impossible sight of Kronos to focus on the human president. What does it want? Peace, Chen replied simply. Kronos is ancient beyond your understanding. It remembers when galaxies were young, when the first intelligent species learned to reach for the stars. It chose to sleep because the universe had grown too violent, too chaotic. My ancestors made a pact with it: we would guard its rest, and, in return, it would protect our world if we were ever truly threatened. Kronos turned its attention fully to the Zephyrian fleet, and the effect was immediate. Ships that had conquered worlds began to buckle under forces that had no name in any scientific catalogue. The entity didn't attack in any conventional sense. It simply existed in a way that made the presence of the fleet an impossibility. "Sir," called the weapons officer, panic clear in his voice, "our armaments are ... changing. The molecular structure of our plasma cannons is reverting to base elements." Vex looked at his hands and saw his own scales beginning to shimmer and shift. Around the bridge, his crew was experiencing the same phenomenon. They weren't being destroyed, they were being unmade, reduced to their component atoms by proximity, to something that existed outside the normal flow of time and space. "Please," Vex shouted toward the communication screen. "Tell it to stop. We surrender. We'll leave your system and never return." Chun's expression was grim. "It's not that simple, Commander. Kronos doesn't think in terms of surrender or retreat. It sees only threats to the peace it has maintained for millennia. Your attack on Earth wasn't just an act of war, it was a violation of cosmic law." Dr. Sarah Martinez appeared beside President Chen on the screen, her voice urgent. "Commander, I'm reading energy spikes that suggest Kronos is preparing to do something significant. My calculations indicate it could be planning to remove your entire fleet from this reality." The tactical display showed Kronos extending what might have been appendagizer, perhaps manipulations of space-time itself, toward the Zephyrian ships. Where these extensions touched the vessels, they simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, but erased from the fundamental equations of reality. "Lieutenant." Kral grabbed Vex's arm. "Sir, with respect, we need to try something different. Our conventional tactics are useless against this entity." Vex nodded grimly and stepped toward the communication console. "President Chen, what would it take for this ... Kronos to spare?" "My fleet." Chen consulted with Dr. Martinez and several other officials before responding. "Kronos is evaluating your species, Commander. It's accessing your ship's databases, learning about the Zephyrian Empire and your conquest of other worlds." "What will it find?" 17 conquered civilizations, billions of sentient beings enslaved or destroyed, entire ecosystems stripped of resources. Chen's voice was heavy with judgment. "Commander, your empire represents exactly the kind of cosmic violence that drove Kronos to sleep in the first place." The ancient Guardian's attention intensified, and more Zephyrian ships began to fade from existence. But then, something unexpected happened. Kronos paused, its cosmic gaze focusing on Lieutenant Kral, who had been quietly running calculations on his personal device. Through the ship's communication system, a voice spoke not heard through sound, but impressed directly into the minds of everyone present. It was the voice of ages, of stars being born and dying, of civilizations rising and falling across the cosmos. "Young warrior, your thoughts are different." Kral stepped forward, his voice trembling but determined. "Great Kronos, I have been calculating the resources required to feed the populations of our conquered worlds. My analysis suggests that the Zephyrian Empire could support its people through trade and cooperation rather than conquest." "Explain." Kral's hands shook as he pulled up his data. "The 17 worlds we've conquered could produce exponentially more resources as willing trade partners than as slave colonies. The energy we expend on military suppression could be redirected to terraforming and development projects. Commander Vex stared at his lieutenant in amazement. Crow, what are you saying? I'm saying we've been fools, sir. We conquered because it seemed easier than negotiating, but the mathematics don't support our methods. We could have a larger, more prosperous empire through peaceful expansion. Kronos processed this information, its attention shifting between Kral and the vast databases of Zephyrian military operations. The cosmic entity's judgment was swift and absolute. Your species will be given one opportunity. Return to your conquered worlds. Release your slaves. Establish trade agreements. Prove that intelligence can overcome aggression. Commander Vex felt his ship suddenly regain the ability to move. Around him, his crew were returning to normal as Kronos withdrew its reality-altering presence. And if we refuse, then I will wake others like me, and your empire will become a cautionary tale told across the stars. The communication channel crackled as President Chen spoke again. Commander, Kronos is offering your species something unprecedented, second chance. In its 12,000 years of sleep, it has never extended such mercy. Vex looked around his bridge, seeing his crew in a new light. These beings who had followed him across the galaxy in pursuit of conquest were now looking to him to lead them toward something different. Lieutenant Krail, what's your assessment of implementing this peaceful expansion? Krail consulted his calculations. Sir, if we approach our conquered worlds as equals rather than subjects, we could see resource output increase by 400% within a standard year, and the energy saved from military suppression could fund colonization of uninhabited systems and the other species, the ones we've enslaved. Many of them have technologies and knowledge that we've ignored because we only saw them as labor forces. Imagine what we could accomplish working together instead of against each other. Commander Vex felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope, Kronos, Great Guardian, we accept your terms. The Zephyrian Empire will withdraw from this system and begin implementing peaceful negotiations with our subject worlds. Good. But know this, young commander, I will be watching. And if your species returns to its violent ways, there will be no second warnings. As the ancient guardian settled back toward Antarctica, the ice began to reform around it, sealing it once again in its ageless slumber. But the universe had changed. Word of what had happened at Earth spread across the galaxy with the speed of quantum communication. Within months, other aggressive species began to reconsider their expansion strategies. The sleeping guardians became a legend that enforced peace through the mere possibility of their awakening. The Zephyrian Empire, true to its word, began the process of transforming from conquerors to partners. Lieutenant Kral, promoted to admiral for his role in averting cosmic catastrophe, often found himself thinking about the thin line between destruction and salvation. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of sleeping powers that demanded respect, and on Earth. Dr. Sarah Martinez continued her research, knowing that humanity had been chosen not just as guardians of one ancient entity, but as shepherds of a cosmic balance that could shape the destiny of all intelligent life. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, ancient wisdom still watched over the young and foolish, offering guidance to those wise enough to listen and consequences to those who were not.